What's up, PTB?
Whoop.
What's up, Fade My Plays? How are you doing tonight? Welcome to another episode of Parking the Bus.
Yes, sir. Let's go.
All right, another day with so much to talk about. I mean, every match almost has delivered in this tournament, and today was no different. Plenty to talk about. What were your initial reactions at the end of the match?
That Denmark were robbed. I felt so bad for them. If you asked me before the game who I thought would win, it'd be England. The bets that I made were the over 2. And I also bet that it would go to extra time. So got a real big cash on that one. But I mean, England are the better team. For the most part, they played like the better team in general. There were definitely some moments where Denmark looked dangerous. But in extra time, I have to say England were pressing. They were pressing for a win. They knew that they could not let this go to penalty shootout.
Yeah.
But again, like I said, I think England are the better team and would have got the win. But just you hate
the way it happened. Yeah.
Yeah, and also on this podcast at length, I've talked about how much I do not rate Raheem Sterling as a world-class player. But at the end of the day, it also sucks for English fans that, I would argue most of them don't care. They're through to the final. That's all that matters. But it sucks for them that, most of the commentary after the game was it a penalty? Was it not a penalty?
Right.
When you look at the replay, it was an absolute dive. But, and again, Leo brought this up and, he's obviously a massive City fan. So I was saying, Sterling, I hate seeing him dive all the time, blah, blah, blah. And Leo said, well, then if you don't give a penalty kick for it, then people wouldn't be diving. And I have to completely agree. I mean, what's Sterling supposed to do? He has nowhere to go. There's 2 players coming at him. If he feels any sort of contact, the way the game is played now, he has to go down. So, it sucks to watch him do it over and over again. But at the end of the day, he did what ultimately was the right call for trying to get his team to win. And when you go back and look at it from every angle, it's like, wow, like there was no contact.
No.
And so it sucks for the Danish fans that they had to go out on something that's highly questionable. It sucks for the English fans that everyone's like, oh, you didn't really win. But, at the end of the day, I think that this is the matchup, that people expected and really wanted to see. I mean, I had a future on Italy and England to be the finalists. So, I'm not complaining. But my biggest takeaway was talk about a letdown for what up until then was an exciting, great game.
Yeah, I agree. And I just want to preface by saying England were the better team and deserved to win. I think sometimes when we start to harp on the calls, we get misunderstood. But that was the wrong call.
And what's the point of VAR if they constantly...
That's my frustration. Like, we've learned in this tournament that apparently nothing VAR can do to overturn these decisions. Because we've just seen one, unless it's an offside, we've seen one after another just be confirmed by VAR. Whether you see that the call was right or not. And this was a case where I think it doesn't get more clear than that this isn't a penalty kick. Yeah. But
also, and we've said this before in talking about other games, but especially with the NBA finals going on right now, we see that a lot. It's just an extra punch in the gut. It's an extra fucking kick in the dick when the decision is made at a time where you have to know as a referee, you just made the outcome of this game.
Right.
Like the idea that in extra time, you straight away point to the spot. Fair enough. Like, cause when it comes to a penalty, you kind of got to do that, I guess. And then they review it and they made the conscious decision looking at it from all the angles we saw that said, this is not a penalty, to say, you know what, we're going to make the decision about who wins this game for you. And we're going to say it's England.
Yeah, it really appears that way, especially to a neutral. I know an England fan isn't going to care, but and they'll remind everyone how many times they've been on the wrong side of decisions and how unlucky they've been. So, yeah, fair play to that. But you just watch it, and I mean, we haven't had VAR very long, but I remember when referees used to go look at something like that and decide for themselves, rather than waiting for someone to tell them in their earpiece whether or not they got it right. And I think that he's the one that made the call. He should be the one to look at the video and decide whether or not he made the right call, in my opinion. Yeah. I would have taken a little longer, but I think if he still, again, I said this the other day, if he still looks at it and feels he made the right call, I'll live with it then.
Exactly.
Because I know he's looked at it.
That's exactly correct. That is exactly correct. There has to be some sort of like, it seems like the rules for VAR change every single game.
Mm-hmm.
And that drives me insane.
Yeah, no doubt about it. But again, the other thing I was thinking, because of course, once you go to the post game, the coverage, if it's an English pundit or actually an English, because the Scottish pundits were thinking much differently, of course.
It was real bad.
But it's like the English pundits saw this one way and everybody else saw this completely the other way. Now, I say, how do they react if this is Sunday and that's Ciro Immobile who gets a penalty like that in extra time? They're or Federico Chiesa. They're calling him a cheat.
I mean,
because they're so vicious towards towards foreign players that get these kind of penalties.
Well, and that's like the remarkable thing that I've noticed is, in watching the last few matches with England in the quarterfinal and the round of 16 and today, I've been paying much closer attention to how their forwards play, in specific Raheem Sterling and Harry Kane. And they are, I'm not trying to say they've been bad in any way. I think especially Kane today was fantastic. But they have been playing for a lot of free kicks. And Harry Kane, I would say, isn't diving in the box, whereas Sterling, I mean, it seems like as soon as he's in the box, he's going to dive. But Harry Kane today, I mean, the amount of fouls that he played for, being in nowhere in space and just shielding the ball until he gets fouled, and then, we have a free kick for England from 40 yards out. And it just seems so interesting to me, this style of play that Gareth Southgate has them doing that is very, very deeply rooted in trying to score the way that a team that you would think is, the underdog is trying to score. Sit back, soak up pressure, and then score off some random free kick or some, break. So I just think it's, again, I don't get it, but they're in the final, so who am I to say anything?
Of course.
I am shocked to see yet another English performance that is wildly underwhelming with all the talent they have. And I think it also exposes that Ukraine game for what it was, in terms of the Ukraine just being absolutely shocking in defense that day, rather than England being good, because 3 of their goals were just free headers. I mean, like, especially that Harry Maguire goal for number 2. It was just like, he's in acres of space and he's the best header of the ball on the pitch. Like, how does that work? So yeah, I was very underwhelmed by England's performance yet again. I'm interested to see how they'll fare against the Italians, who are, a step up in class from anyone that England have played. I think England will get it done, hopefully. But yeah, I mean, another thing that I will say, and again, I'm not harping on Sterling specifically, just kind of in general, but the interesting thing is that in the first half, Sterling had a couple of chances that, unbelievable he didn't put away. However, he was very highly involved in the England goal, which was an own goal. Yeah, there you go. I mean, perfectly said.
We have a comment here from one of the viewers, SGPEPL. He says, Kane shouldn't be looking for the ball 30 yards out from goal. Mason Mount isn't productive at all. Yeah, exactly. He was dropping very deep, and he has this tournament a lot of times not getting the service in the area of the pitch where he can do what he does, which is score goals. He's had to drop. And I mean, England's first goal comes from him dropping and sending in, who was it? Kyle Walker he sent in. I don't remember who he played in, that then might have even been Sterling. Sterling was on the end of it. So I don't remember who centered the ball that led to the own goal, but I know Kane made the original vertical pass. in behind that player ran onto. I don't remember if it was Kyle Walker or if it was Mason Mount. I don't know, but he's making a good point here. It was Saka. Thank you. The viewer said it was Saka who played that across.
Yeah, but when you watch that back, and this is my point, and what I think is so interesting is when you watch the England goal back, it was decent play from England to get it going. Don't get me wrong, but when you see it in slow motion, you see Sterling know that he's not going to get to the ball and drag his legs across the defender and put his arms up flailing and dive, and then to see that in the first half, and the referees are supposed to discuss this kind of thing at halftime. And then that is the exact thing that you decide the game upon, giving him a penalty for a similar dive. That is insane to me that you had an example in the first half that led to a goal where a player literally threw himself over another player because he knew he wasn't going to get to it. And then sure enough, that's exactly what happens in extra time. You give it, and there's the game.
Yeah. I liked the approach that Denmark took. Now, I said last night that the only way they had a chance was, one, to keep England from scoring first and eventually getting a go-ahead goal of their own. I thought that they did exactly that. That free kick, though, we cannot let Jordan Pickford off the hook on this one.
God, he was in the center of the fucking goal.
You cannot let him, and everybody's giving him a free pass on this one. And first of all, he goes at this with the wrong hand. And it was a nice, it was well hit, but it was down the center basically. It was just slightly off center. And you expect a goalkeeper at this level to make that save, in my opinion. It was from pretty far away as well. It was the second farthest out goal of the entire tournament, second only to Schick's goal against Scotland. So again, Denmark did exactly what they had to do to start this match, and I think they had the right approach. If they had held on to halftime, I think we might have a different second half, perhaps. Maybe a little more panic could set in England, but they got that equalizer before the half. They were able to settle down. And DGens United here is saying for us to blame the refs, not Sterling. I think we kind of already did that. We started off by talking about the refs early on. And we got another comment here. Denmark looked like a team who traveled all around Europe while England have played 5 at home. I agree 100%. They just went from Copenhagen to, where did they play? In St. Petersburg, I think, in one game, then to Amsterdam, to Baku. Now they're in London. Yeah, they absolutely had a lot more, as we say in the U.S., a lot more mileage in their legs. And literally having traveled so much further. And, I don't think this was necessarily the intent, but the only thing better than organizing the tournament in your home country is just organizing your matches in your home country, which is what England was the deal England got in this. They only had to organize essentially the England matches. I know a few others were also played at Wembley, but for the most part, they only worried about England's matches. England played, like we said here, they've played 5 out of 6 at home. They'll have had 6 out of 7 at home when it's said and done. Whereas no other host team even came close to that many matches at home. And we even saw teams win their group like Italy and then have to go play in another country while they hosted 2 other teams from other groups. So it is interesting how that played out. I think in the future, if they go back to this format, I would propose that the team that hosts the final stages should not be hosting the group stages. Yeah, so well, if you're going to host the semifinals, right. So, I mean, but this is, this was kind of an experiment. This was Michel Platini's doing years ago. And by the time he was outed, it was too late to undo. So I think actually they've done a great job. Organizing this tournament, given everything they had to deal with. And we got another comment here saying England took the matches from Dublin, so that's why it's ended being. Okay, that's fair enough. I do know Dublin and Bilbao pulled out late. Of course, the Bilbao matches were moved to Seville, to what everyone's calling the worst pitch in the entire Euro. So Yeah, some things had to be moved around. I suppose he makes a good point there. So it may not have been designed for them to get this much of a home advantage, but it has worked out really nice for them to play at Wembley. If they were hosting the whole tournament, I have to believe they'd move a little bit more around the country and not get all their games at Wembley like they have.
And so, again, that's not England players' fault. That's
not at all. It's just an interesting way that everything has shaped up in this tournament.
100%, yeah. And I think also the other thing is we saw, whether it be the travel or just kind of the emotional toll, physical toll, whatever it may be, but definitely in the last 15 minutes of regular time, Denmark, I mean, they looked tired. And then in the, entirety of extra time, they just looked like they had expended all energy and just had very little left in the tank. And you could see that when they try and push everyone forward, and then England would clear a ball and their players just had no ability to get back. And, luckily no clinical finishing was done from the England side to get it to 3-1 or anything in extras. But yeah, it was just, you could tell the team was pretty well gassed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you could see it. And I know the penalty might be controversial, but it was building up for 10, 15 minutes where you could see a penalty was coming because they were running at these tired backs in the box every single time. And I don't know. I lost count of how many times Denmark just timed their tackles perfectly. Every single time. They just got there at the right time until, the one that was called a penalty. But it was like, but you could see that they were fresher, they were quicker, that Denmark is slowing down, that they're tiring. And England having the wherewithal to exploit that and run at them in the area. And I thought that they should have pushed their line up a little bit. I know they needed to sit deep, but when you're sitting like that deep, you got to get out of your penalty area. So at least if they run at you, the foul is outside the area and you have a chance to defend it.
Well, and also, I mean, the other thing is just in that exact same vein, it seems like they kind of, I agree that the Ukraine game was not a good representation of the kind of, games that they would have today and in the final, but it seemed like they regressed. It's like what they were doing in the Ukraine game was pushing people forward, getting that pace up the wings, which is what everyone has been saying. It's like Gareth Southgate caved to public pressure to set a more attacking lineup. Lo and behold, they win 4-0. Granted, I put most of that on the Ukraine, less on England. But then today they reverted back to that and conceded their first goal of the tournament from a, relatively soft foul and then some terrible goalkeeping, but a decent shot. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there was a lot of pace and dip on that. But, it seemed as though they kind of forgot that they had scored 6 goals in their last 2 games before that. And like you said, I felt that England deserved a open play goal or, some kind of really harsh penalty that was crazy and, just clattered into him, because I thought the entirety of extra time that England was just running all over him. I mean, Denmark had nothing left. You could tell a goal was coming. It just sucks that it happened, from that. I think they would have gotten it anyway. So
yeah, and you could see England wanted no part of a penalty shootout today, unlike the match we saw yesterday with both teams coming to that conclusion and being okay with it as the extra time wore on. Today, that was not the
odd
case
for Spain. So
why would they, given their penalty record? Yeah,
but lo and behold, who bricks it?
Yeah, again. All right, so looking at some statistics from this match, so England had the better of the possession, about 60-40. Take away a few decimals. 20 total shots for England, 6 for Denmark, 15 chances created for England to 4 for Denmark. And then looking at the pass totals, England is getting up. They're not in Spain territory, but they're connecting as many passes as anybody else.
Yeah.
They got 637 passes. That's high in this tournament.
Most of them are backwards.
Right. That's true.
Or in their own half.
Between the 2 center halves. And exactly. Denmark connected 432. I thought Denmark at times was in control. And I think they picked their moments well. And I think they knew, as we could see, that they didn't have a lot left in the tank to especially to go the extra 30 minutes in this one. And they knew they couldn't go all out attack the way, for example, Spain yesterday had to, right? Yeah. And I was waiting yesterday for Spain to just gas out, and they actually held on longer than I expected before they just couldn't push forward anymore. But I think Denmark, you can see a intelligence and an experience in that side, that they know how to buckle down in these big matches and wait for their moments and limit the mistakes. Unfortunately, it comes down to an own goal and a missed penalty kick that rebounded right back to him. Talk about a little bit of good fortune. It's like Kasper Schmeichel did everything right, except he parried it right back out in front for Harry Kane. To his credit, didn't stand and look at it either. He crashed the rebound, and I think he knew it was saved from the moment he kicked it because he followed it immediately.
Yeah. And also, I mean, you have to be there to score it, and I don't begrudge that, but I think a little part of the blame has to be on Kasper Schmeichel for, parry it away or catch it.
Yeah,
don't try and do one or the other. It's like it was very clear he hadn't made up in his mind what he was going to do after he saved it, because he didn't try to grab onto the ball, didn't try and push it away. No. Literally just put his arms out to block it and let it rebound straight at him.
Right. Yeah, it was unfortunate because it was actually a really poorly taken penalty and didn't deserve the goal in that sense. But in the end, of course, England get it done, like we said. They have more in every statistical category. They do deserve to win. It's just the game gets marred and gets blurred by the way it happened, unfortunately. And of course, if you're Denmark, the Danish players are so polite. If that was another country, that referee would have been surrounded. And they would have walked him literally walked him to the VAR screen, or they would have pressured him into looking at it himself. And the Danes, kind of just accepted it.
Yeah. And which is very odd because, I don't know, maybe Vestergaard thought that he clipped him, And again, I understand it's in the box, you're tired, but it's also equally part and terrible. And this again goes back to saying I don't blame Sterling as much as I blame the refs, even though I personally don't like Sterling. Mm-hmm. But in real time, it looked like a penalty. And we have this disadvantage slash advantage of we can go back and look at all these angles and super slow-mo, high def, and see, it's not a penalty.
Yeah.
But that only fuels the fire of outrage for those who, it screwed, and pleasure for those who benefited from it.
Yeah.
So that's another tough thing, because genuinely I was watching it and I saw it and I'm like, penalty. And it wasn't until the third angle where you see straight on that his feet don't actually touch anyone. It's okay. So I think that's also a tough thing, that the ref saw what we saw, called it, and then VAR has to say 1 billion% you got it wrong. And even though I think they did, it's hard to blame anyone there.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I also thought it was a penalty in live action. Mm. And then after seeing each replay, I was less convinced. Basically, I was already doubting it the first replay. And then you see another angle, then another one, and I'm starting to say I'm pretty confident that there was no contact there.
Yeah.
But unless there was a gust of wind or something. But but yeah, I mean, again, if that had happened against England, we'd be having a whole different conversation.
Exactly.
And I think that's only fair to say, because that's the truth. There's just this thing that goes around this team and the coverage and the fanfare that they're hyper-analyzed. We look at all the games and we analyze the matches, but England matches get hyper-analyzed, not just by their own press, but by everyone else's too, because there is just this fascination with this culture and this following for this team that just goes to tournaments and everyone's waiting for them to implode somewhere.
Yep.
And now they're going to the final, and everyone's jumped on the bandwagon. Majority of people believe they've already won it. They're singing "It's Coming Home" more and more and more. This song was off the air for 25 years, and it's been resurrected during this tournament, which is hilarious. But
it was, I think they're going to win it. And it's, interestingly, I thought it was going to be a better matchup than now I believe it will be, because I just thought Spain exposed a lot of the problems with Italy's defense. And not that there is ticky-tack or anything, but England kind of press forward very similarly to how Spain do, in the sense that it's not long balls over the top. It's not pacey wingers or anything. It's effective passing through the midfield. And even though I think that's the wrong way for England to play, that's the way they've been playing and the way they've been winning. And that is what Spain did. And arguably, I'd say Spain looked better for the 90 minutes that we saw in regulation.
Sure. And you see the way the majority of England's goals come. They're on the overlap. The back overlaps the winger, and then it hammers it across the face of goal. It's either a header or it's a tap in or it's an own goal. But a lot of their goals come from the ball being driven low across the face of goal. We saw yesterday how Spain was able to get in behind Italy's back line, or was able to run at them. All right, especially the second half when they had Gerard Moreno and Alvaro Morata in, and Danny Olmo dropped into that number 10 role. He started playing those vertical passes into the gaps. The forwards were running onto it. By the time the defenders turn, they're gone. And I think England will have the opportunity to do the same thing.
What do you think of Italy's attacking play yesterday?
It was very limited. They countered. I mean, obviously the play that delivered the goal was the best play of the match. And it was a great quick counterattack where Donnarumma managed to get the ball into play, and it took 13 seconds to go from Donnarumma to the back of the net. But for the most part, there wasn't a lot of attacking play yesterday.
No.
It was very cagey. They didn't want to lose their shape. They took very few risks yesterday. And I think losing Spinazzola and replacing him with Emerson changes the whole dynamic of that back line. And they lost so much of that attack down the left side. And I think that's why you ended up seeing Insigne get moved central, just to get him on the ball, because they were having Spain was having success taking care of those wide channels. And part of it was because you don't have the back coming in to overlap and to create those man advantages in those key areas and to give your team, the upper leg on it. But overall, I think Italy was efficient. Obviously, they scored with the opportunity they had, but it was very calculated and not the way they've been playing up to this point.
Yeah, I think it was interesting to see exactly what you said in terms of there just wasn't much of it, which is so odd, because until yesterday they had the most XG of any team so far in the tournament. But also, it can't be understated, the loss of Spinazzola. I mean, that man has done himself some favors in this tournament. Unfortunately, I hear that hamstring injuries are kind of a common thing with him, which may hold
Achilles,
back. His Achilles, excuse me. But he was unbelievable, and I just don't know now how are they going to get these, threatening balls, because it's just been overlaps for them the whole tournament, and then we saw without it, it's just I think this is like England written all over it.
Yeah, I think Italy's going to play similar to how they played against Spain. Again, losing a key guy like that, I think, is enough to throw off the whole dynamic of how the team plays, because now you've got four slow in the back. You have Bonucci and Chiellini who give you everything they have, but pace is not one of those things.
No.
And, you lose your speedy outside defender who Spinazzola, as good as he was going forward, was just as good as a one-on-one defender and just as good at tracking back and getting back to help protect those center backs. So I think you're going to see Italy take less chances. They're probably going to sit in a little deeper, wait for the counter, and then try to use their dribblers, Chiesa, Insigne, to get into spaces and give themselves opportunities. We'll see if they continue to go with Ciro Immobile. He keeps getting pulled off earlier and earlier. But I have to think that Mancini will play the way he's been. He's not going to make a massive change now in the final. They may just tweak how they set up, but I think their approach will probably be closer to what it was against Spain than what it was, against Belgium for example.
Yeah, I mean, and you kind of nailed it for me in my analysis so far. I mean, I haven't gotten too deep into it because, the match has only just finished today. But where I see the biggest disparity is that back line. I mean, you have Chiellini and Bonucci who are, the wrong side of 35.
Yeah.
And these are your players that are supposed to be stopping Harry Kane and Jack Grealish and Raheem Sterling and, Saka and Rashford and Sancho if he ever gets a minute. I mean, I don't see that versus, the Manchester back line of, Manchester United's Harry Kane and Luke Shaw, and then Manchester City's Kyle Walker and John Stones. I mean, they're young, they're strong, they're hungry. Luke Shaw and Walker are unbelievably fast. And you see it today. I mean, again, I'd say arguably Luke Shaw was, if not the man of the match, one of the, top 3 players on the pitch today, just in the danger he provides down that left wing. And that seems to be a lot of the success that they find because that's also where Sterling's coming in most of the time. So
yeah,
I'm very, very interested to see how Italy tries to break that down without overlaps. And then also going the other way, how their back line in any way can keep up with, all the players that England has for their attack, whether or not they play that way. I mean, for me, it makes so much sense for England to just push the boat out in the first, 20 minutes and just attack, go at them, leave gaps in the back because you have players that are fast enough to cover, but just show Italy this strong offensive ability early, and then that'll have them running scared. And if you get a goal, then, I mean, you just revert to what England does best, which is sitting back. But I mean, I don't think without Spinazzola, and it's a huge downgrade to I forget his name, who is
Emerson.
Thank you, who's playing left back. I mean, the downgrade makes England, for me, a much, much bigger threat to Italy's defense.
Yeah, and we saw yesterday he brought on Toloi and played him on the right and moved Di Lorenzo to the left. Maybe that's also a possible backline, that an adjustment he makes. Be very, very interesting to see what each team does, because Southgate has changed something every match. So
yeah,
there'll be some kind of change in the final, and it could turn into a chess match if Italy can stay organized, keep the ball, keep the play in front of them, not let themselves get turned to facing their own goal. And if Donnarumma is on his game and playing a little higher to make up for that lack of pace in the back, they could be controlling the game without the ball. And then you could really have a chess match to see which team tries to expose the other one first.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know. I think the longer it goes, the more I like Italy. And that I feel has been every match that I've watched England so far. The longer it goes without England leading, the more I think they're going to lose. Not just because, yes, we're getting closer to full time, but more because they haven't shown that ability to, when they have 20 minutes left and have to score, they do. And that we saw a glimpse of it today in extra time. They were pressing, they were fighting. But whilst that is exactly what I want to see from them in the first 15 minutes of any game, in the last 15 minutes of any game, if they're, tied or losing, that was against a Danish team that had no legs left, that, I mean, were much lower competition than Italy will be. So I think for England, the talk has to be from Gareth Southgate, we need to be leading in the first half and sit on it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, he doesn't want to be in the situation he was in today where they fall behind. It's going to be harder.
I will say this. I mean, again, I agree with you. I think there was a lot had to happen for that free kick to go in. It was a brilliant free kick in terms of pace and dip, but Pickford should have saved it. I think he is no way should be the number one keeper for England, but whatever. But I do think that they kept their cool. They didn't look as though, oh God, like we need to get a goal back, we need to hurry this up or anything. They kept composure. They got their goal. They were pressing the entire time that they were down. I liked seeing that, and it made me confident. And it's interesting. I'm looking at the lines right now, and to lift the cup, to win the Euros, Italy is -105. England is -115. I'm surprised that it's that close. I think you're going to see heavy money coming in on England. So if you think
without a doubt.
Yeah, get that bet in now. But even on the money line, England +165 and Italy +195. The over-under is 2 +1 -110 either way. But I'm just shocked that after what we saw Italy do, that I think the only reason England aren't bigger favorites here is just because of the fact that today they let Denmark in and played it into extra time, when if you watch the eye test of that game said England was in control 80% of the time and looked good doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. And as we get closer to game time, like you said, more money's going to be thrown on England, and it's going to inflate in their favor.
Get that in now.
Get that in now. Also, as the game gets hyped, I think people are really going to get behind England. The media does a great job of telling you the story, and they are like, they've now taken out the Cinderella, if you will. They've taken out everyone's favorite, every neutral's favorite team. I think they want to obviously be the story of this tournament now, and that's by bringing it home. Although Kasper Schmeichel's comment was really funny. Has it ever been home? He said. he pointed out that they won the World Cup and not the Euros.
Yeah,
and but
no, I agree with you. I think also, though, people are, and maybe today will change things a little bit, but I think people will also be rooting for England because of the way Italy has played, especially in the quarterfinals. But just their, diving and time wasting and all that bullshit that people hate watching, the neutral fans will lean more England because of that. And Italy is famous for that kind of bullshit anyway. Maybe with what happened with Sterling and all that today, that'll change. But, I also see that from a football perspective, England is kind of this, rough and tumble, lovable underdog, even though they're not in any way an underdog, versus the powerhouse of history that Italy is in international competitions, and especially the Euros. We'll see how it goes, but I think you're going to see heavy line movement towards England. Yeah,
it's going to be a good game. I think it's going to. It always is when you get to a final. Plus, you get two major footballing nations, two of the biggest, two of the most supported. It's like a made-for-TV final.
Yeah, that's true.
Literally, and these games, you still have to play them. They can go any way, 90 minutes. I mean, Denmark was close to taking this to penalties and probably winning if they get to penalties today. So it's way too soon to start making the parade reservations and to start ordering the champagne, which I think some of the England fans have been doing really since they beat Germany. But you still got to play the match. You still got to play the match, and
there comes something with so England has lost their last 4 majors in the semifinals, and 5 if you include the Nations League a few years ago, and then Italy. This is nothing new for them, so that may be an element as well of just you have players that are experienced at this level across the board for Italy, and 0 with England. There's no England player that has ever played in an international final because they haven't been there. So, and there may be, I don't know, a bit of a letdown spot because of the win today, and they got over this hump of like never being able to make it out of a semifinal and all that kind of stuff. I personally will be betting on England. But yeah, it's just, man, I really, really see this, narrative of England being able to win and showing that they can win. And if they lose, it'll be through some, they just aren't able to finish for 88 minutes. And then on a counterattack, Italy sneak one in, something like that. But I believe England to be the better team, by quite some distance without Spinazzola.
Yeah, that changes everything. The Spinazzola injury, that really changes. Italy's going to have to find out where they're even going to attack this England team and how they're going to go about it. And like you said, one of their biggest weapons was Spinazzola, and he's out now. So I'm wondering if he's going to make any slight adjustments in the positioning of the midfielders, or if he's going to stick to this traditional 4-3-3. Because in this last match, Jorginho was not able to distribute the way we've seen him do in the previous 4 matches. So I have to think that the Italian coaching staff is going to be watching film and trying to decipher how do we get more touches to Insigne? How do we get more touches to Jorginho? Verratti's covering too much mileage. He's running, covering too much space. They have all this data to analyze, and I'm interested to see just how they're going to adjust to each other. And I have to say that England are obvious favorites. If you're talking about money, the money is on England, but I'm going to hope for Italy to win. Nothing personal, just want to see it stay in a Latin country. Just a little bit of that, but my head is telling me England's going to win, and my heart's telling me Italy. So just have to watch how they do it and see which way this one goes. Are you going to be available to come on Sunday night?
I should be. Yeah, okay. Absolutely. It's going to be a long day. I think it's going to be a pretty thirsty day for me. I have a big family and a bunch of friends. They're all English that are going to be absolutely losing their minds on Sunday.
That'll be fantastic. Yeah, so we'll look forward to that. That'll be the last Euro 2020 episode where we're coming down to the last day somehow.
Oh, because I wasn't able to say it yesterday, I have to say I am a Manchester United fan. I have been since I was 5 years old, but I hate Chelsea. It drives me insane that they are champions of Europe. However, I would have preferred them a bajillion times over Manchester City. However, as much as I hate Chelsea and every player that plays for them by nature of that was the coldest motherfucking penalty I have ever in my life from Jorginho. I mean, that was so raw. Like watching that, I literally was like just flabbergasted with the cheek and that was fucking so baller. I've never seen a penalty that was that ice cold. Just looked him off the other way and taps it in. I mean, I just literally, I could not stop talking about it yesterday. I was just so enthralled with how he absolutely wrecked it. Made what's his face look like an absolute dickhead.
Unai Simone.
Unai, that's who. Yeah, I mean, what an unbelievable PK, and especially with all the pressure on your shoulders.
Oh, of course,
do that. Like not even the 1, 2, 3, but like you win it with this. And you do that shit. Like, what a penalty!
Yeah,
what a penalty.
Yeah, that was a fun game. Both semifinals really lived up to the billing.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, great games. And God, I mean, ESPN winning with all these freaking extra time games. Jesus.
Oh, big time. Let's just hope we don't get disappointed in the final now and get some kind of snoozer. But I don't think so. With these two teams, I think we're going to get a good final.
Yeah.
And may the best team win.
Absolutely. I hope so.
All right. Make sure you follow him. He's at Fade My Play. I'm at PTB_media. Make sure you hit the subscribe button down there and hit the little bell next to it so you get alerted when we go live. I'm planning to do a Copa America show Saturday, but that may be really late at night, so it probably won't even go on live. It may go straight to the podcast. Follow the social media, and I'll keep you up to date on that. And until then,
who you got on that?
I think Brazil wins.
All right.
We got a Brazil-Argentina final for anyone who doesn't know. I think Brazil wins at home. I think they have too much depth.
Yep. I also am, on a personal note with my heart, just don't want Messi to win any sort of international plaudits.
Yeah,
it's selfish. But
that argument, it's like if he does, it's just then you have the Copa America versus the Euros argument, and it's just that just doesn't take anybody anywhere good.
I mean, damn.
But that's going to do it for episode 63, everybody. Thank you again for listening. Thank you for watching. Follow the social media and check out www.parkingthebusmedia.com. We'll see you Sunday after the final.